Redditors who moved into a tiny house during the craze a while back, how's it going now? I lived in half a shack for years in the oil patch. Small bedroom, small bathroom and a kitchen, office, living room. 10 out of 10 would live again as long as your shackmate is sane. I moved into one rented long before the craze. Lived in it for 13 years. I saved a ton of money which allowed me to buy my own place in one of the most expensive markets in my country, Canada, but I wouldn't recommend it to most. I went stir crazy a lot. Any little thing someone buys you, there is never a place for it. You can't really host any dinners or anything. It was cute. I loved my landlords. I saved money, but never again. When the craze started I laughed. When I moved out my landlords could charge double cause of the craze and rental market. They probably could have got more but they weren't greedy. But yeah, not again thank you. Because people have asked in the past here on Reddit, here is an album of pictures. Outside. Inside it's smaller than these make it look. Last year I purchased a 12x28 building from a friend. He'd built it as an addition onto his house, but built it on 4x6 runners so it could easily be moved if necessary. He was going to buy the property he was renting, and then things turned sour with the landlord. So, he offered to sell the building to me. For $2,000 I got a 12x28 building with metal sides and metal roof. Electric was already ran in it to a central location where I could install an electric panel, and it was heavily insulated with 4 of hard foam insulation and then R19 fiberglass on top of that. In my backyard I had a concrete pad that was the exact right size that used to be where the ice house was for my town, before people had refrigerators. I bought it with the intention of turning it into a home office, man cave. Well, not too long after that, my family made the decision to put my grandfather into an assisted living facility. My dad lived with him in an apartment and helped take care of him, but it was beginning to be too much for my dad to handle. My dad doesn't make enough to afford a place on his own without being severely stretched financially. So, I offered to turn it into a cabin for him. It's worked out quite well. It's insulated so well that he barely burns any propane heating it in the winter, and the 9000 BTU mini split unit I installed makes it so cold during the summer you could hang meat. He does want a larger hot water heater. The 6-gallon isn't enough. We're going to upgrade him to a 15-gallon soon. Beyond that, he is very happy with the situation and his small house. He's been living in there for 13 months now with no issues. My dad lived on a 20-foot sailboat in Florida for a few years, and when we were kids we'd visit him for the entire summer. 1 adult, 1 medium-sized pitbull, and 3 kids ranging from age 7 to 12 all on a gutted 20-foot boat wasn't exact ideal but we made it work. We had it docked at a marina that had a simple bathroom and shower, and I believe he paid about $50 per month for the slip lease. Had shore power for our little TV and microwave, and a water spigot at the dock for drinking, cleaning fish, washing stuff off. It was incredibly hot on the inside. Imagine a fiberglass coffin just sitting in the hot Florida sun, baking the corpse inside. We were those corpses. The bed was a slab of foam that my siblings and I shared, but I opted to take a sleeping bag towards the back to avoid the excess body heat from everyone. My dad usually slept in a chair he had set up in front of the TV, his preference. As far as the actual lifestyle associated with living in spaces that cramped, it wasn't all bad. We'd take the boat out in the Gulf on the weekends, fish, barbecue, and explore mangroves, sandbars. Our grandparents lived in the area and had a pool, so hanging out with them was always fun. We didn't need to grocery shop often as we had some crab traps we'd toss overboard in the marina and haul up enough crab and even some edible fish that would feed us for a couple of days. Got to see a lot of manatees, which was pretty cool. I wouldn't be opposed to living on a boat again, but it'd need to be at least 45 feet and more modernized. Hard pass on living on a floating construction site again. It's so quick to clean actually means it gets messy so quickly. There's always a fight about mess or clutter. You quickly realize all the mistakes you made in design once it's too late to change. Mine will never look as beautifully decorated and spotless as all the ones you see online. I don't know where all their shit is. There's no room to exercise if it's freezing or pouring rain. We are on 50 amps so we can't have the heater or AC running at the same time as the microwave. Hot plate can't be going at the same time as the oven, etc. Smaller water heater since we don't have a tankless means fighting over who gets to shower first and who has to wait an hour. Christmas season is upon us and gifts are shoved in every corner since I can't find anywhere to put them. Your car becomes a second closet. You get some quality bonding time from having to get ready in the bathroom while your soap poops a mere foot away if you're lucky enough to have a bathroom that big. In all seriousness, this is a curated list of the worst things. Overall, it's helped me save a ton on rent, and was the perfect situation since I have parents whose property I can mooch off of. We are eager to get a real house, but could continue on for another couple years if need be. Even with all the design flaws I've noticed, you find a way to make it work and realize you don't need as much space as you think. You get rid of unnecessary items easily, quickly deal with miscellaneous bills and papers, learn to do dishes in a timely manner, and figure out how to be more efficient with the resources you have. For tons of people it can be long-term. My grandma lived in a tiny cabin on my parents' property for almost 20 years. But for a couple who wants to be able to work from home, have pets, and have space to move, maybe not the best idea. Moved into a converted school bus about 4 years ago. It's going great. I pay about a quarter of what most of my peers pay to live in the Bay Area. My wife and I love the space. We bought one to rent out and then we got 30 days notice 3 days after it was delivered. We had to put most of our stuff in storage and the closest lot to where we were was an hour drive away in the middle of nowhere. This Christmas it will have been a year. I am a 17-year-old 16 when we moved, living with my single mother. The concept of living in a loft seemed cool to me and I thought I would enjoy it. I didn't and don't. I hate it here. It may be because I have to drive about an hour to an hour and a half to school each day. It may be that I have to drive that distance to be with my friends. It may be that our internet at its fastest only allows me to watch YouTube in 144p and it doesn't allow me to play video games anymore. It may be that I'm just an angsty teenager. But I hate it. Living in that close quarters with someone is enough to drive me crazy. I can hear her eat, sleep, sing ugh, go to the bathroom ugh, just everything. It's made me hate my only living relative. That's hard to do. Till I learned my 500 square apartment is same size as a tiny house. We moved after 8 months. To be fair, it wasn't really because of the small space, 300 square feet or so, proper tiny house on wheels with a loft bed, kitchen, living room, bathroom plus shower. The space was doable, it was the lack of small but important luxuries like a functioning kitchen and bathroom, a dryer, things like that. Really though, we moved because of permits and the frickin' compost toilet. We sold the tiny house after we realized we'd never be able to pay for a foundation slab permit and septic tank in Southern California. Those each run well over 30 grand. So, may as well buy a house with that price tag plus the cost of the tiny house. Second, don't even bother trying to live in a tiny house with one of those compostable toilets. That's what's really made me give up on the experience. Having to drain the 2-gallon pee jar every couple days was my form of hell. The smell, oh god, it haunts me. Also, never being able to sit up properly in our loft bedroom. Try folding clothes hunched over. All in all, it was an incredible experience and a fun year, but I would never in my life move into another tiny house. Maybe if we were in a populated space with a septic maybe, and a real stove plus dryer. Even then, nope. Still wouldn't do it. Save it for a fun rental vacation type of thing. My parents live in a tourist destination and built one to rent out on Airbnb. They tell me it stays booked up most of the time. I stay in it when I go visit them, and it's pretty nice for staying a few nights in, but I don't think I'd want to live in one full time. It's great. Well, lived in a shoebox for a while out of necessity. It's a dark windowless room that's about the size of 3 twin beds. So you could imagine, you've a twin bed, with very little storage then a bathroom. It's very different than some of the craze where you live on a plot of land or inside a van and have space, freedom and fresh air. I'd literally feel trapped in a box whenever I go home. To be honest, it's a sad way of living. I'd miss a lot of simple essential things, like having a fridge or a stove, or a place to do laundry, or table. I end up living 1 year like this. but it really depresses me. Yes, in a way, I'd save up a lot in rent, but it's not worth it, and in reality not frugal at all. I end up spend way too much on eating out, entertainment and alcohols, laundry, and not buying bulk due to space restraints. I was already living in a tiny house Airstream trailer because I was on tour with the circus for several years when the craze first started. Could not comprehend why people would want to do this. Things are much better now that I'm off the road. I bought my first house, a 3-bedroom on a corner lot, and love it. My dog can actually run around outside without a leash. I have flat walls on which to hang things. Every one of my earthly possessions doesn't have to fit, Tetris-like, into a space under my bed, or be velcroed in place for transit. I can take showers longer than 5 minutes. I can take baths. Take it from someone who spent 6 years living in tiny house conditions professionally. It's miserable. Don't do it. The trailer is still parked in my backyard. Maybe I'll fix it up one day and sell it to my sister, who is still fixated on the tiny house movement. Living in a classic tiny house on wheels here. I bought the unfinished frame several years back and now live in the finished 170 square feet including the sleeping loft house. There are pros and cons. It is not for everyone, but the shorter list of pros outweighs the cons for me. Pros: I have a house, my own house, no matter what. I can Airbnb it potentially down the road. Cons: instead of feeling greater freedom, I often feel less independent because I need help moving it, will probably be living on other people's property for a good while, etc. Sometimes it is a money sink, either due to maintenance, moving it, or expensive. It's a pain and major stress to move. I rent a separate studio for my work, and I have a yoga membership in part to have better longer showers, which add to any rent. Since I built it with off-grid in mind, it is not equipped to be hooked up to city utilities. Thus I have to be very thrifty with my water usage so I don't have to fill up my water tank as often. Will eventually change this. Actually, my wife and I and 2 daughters, 3 and 5 years old, moved into a 40-feet RV for 2.5 years while I attended grad school. We wouldn't trade the experience for anything. We really had a lot of fun traveling and being outside. Admittedly, our experiment was made much more successful because we were living in Monterey, CA, and the weather and surroundings offered dozens of different activities to do. Today we do live in a slightly larger than average home. Up until a few months ago, we still spent 3 to 4 months a year on the road and lived out of our motorhome while I worked. Again, we miss these kinds of trips and adventures. From our perspective, living in tight places is comfortable as long as it is optional. If we were forced to live like that, it might not be as fun. That said, my retirement plan includes living part-time in an RV 6 to 9 months a year and volunteering in the national park system. I look forward to embracing that lifestyle again. My wife and I bought a tiny place years ago, and it was great for us because it was affordable. No way we could have bought a traditional sized place at the time. It allowed us to get out of ever-increasing rent and build equity, and it forced us to live, and consequently spend, more consciously because of the limited space. It was a great financial decision. Then, as tiny houses got trendy, they started getting expensive, which defeats the entire point. I'd still recommend it, but only if you're getting in cheap, not an expensive, boutique tiny space. I lived in a storage pod hut for 7 months. It was the most glorious life experience ever. It was in Paria, Utah, in the middle of Grand Escalante Monument, about 6 miles from the wave, 45 minutes from Antelope Canyon. Stepping outside was literally stepping out into the canyon landscape. I had limited Wi-Fi, 150 MB daily cap. Watched movies on VCR and illustrated t-shirt designs after a hard day's worth of ranch work. Disclaimer: bathroom and kitchen were separate buildings, kinda like at a Koa campground. So my story is just a self-indulgent answer than it is answering the post queue. I've been in mine for 3 years now. Absolutely love it. No regrets whatsoever. Finished out our old hickory shed 3 years ago now. Took 4 months with just me and my dad working on it. Total cost, not including appliances I already had, was under $13,000. It's very well insulated and a single cadet wall heater keeps me nice and toasty. I designed the space and am a Whole Foods Plant-based vegan, so most of the bottom floor is kitchen. I have full-sized appliances, a large stainless steel commercial prep table, another rack full of small appliances and my dry goods. The middle is all open and I have 8 feet walls, so it feels very open and spacious. I have plenty of room to roll out my yoga mat. I sleep upstairs in a loft that I access by ladder. I'm only 42, so no problems there. I even take my 12-pound dog up there every night. My shower is a normal size, though smaller than average. I have a hot water tank and have plenty of hot water for a 20-minute shower, not that I ever take one longer than 5 minutes or so. I'm on property owned by my parents. They lived on my old property for 7 or 8 years, and are now returning the favor. My spot isn't legal, but our neighbors are all cool and 2 of them even have tiny houses as well. I'm hooked up to the water, electricity, cable and septic here. I love everything about it. I'm near Seattle and in warmer months, I'm outside almost all of the time. I run year-round and have a lot of friends and family in the area. Plus I'm actively dating, so I'm not home all the time. When I am, I'm working. I've been self-employed for over 20 years now and work from home.